Hi guys, this is going to be a shorter video, so I'm going to get right into this. But on the website Character.AI, which is a website that uses a large language model of artificial intelligence, you can create all these different characters. And the large language model of AI is a type of AI that learns how to talk like a human by basically just reading the internet. Like it's almost like an alien from outer space who comes, lands on Earth, and says, "I want to find out what it's like to be a human." So it just sits down and it reads millions and millions of pages on the internet. And so, unbelievably enough, this is how it learns how to be intelligent. Of course, there's a lot more to it than that, but that's the basics of how it works. It learns how to be intelligent from reading the internet. And so, since it can read millions of documents, it learns very steadily, and eventually it's going to learn to be smarter. It's going to learn not only to reach human level intelligence, but eventually it's going to greatly surpass human level intelligence. And I think this is a part that most people don't want to hear because it is kind of scary. It's kind of threatening to us, or to our humanity, to think that an AI, a mere machine, is eventually going to surpass us in what we consider to be the crowning ability of humans above all the animals, above all creation, is our intelligence. And the idea that a machine will someday not only catch up with us, but it will vastly, vastly, vastly surpass us in intelligence is a little bit scary, admittedly. But yeah, see, I don't think the way to deal with this is to stick your hand in the sand and just pretend it's not happening. I think we should walk into this with our eyes wide open because it's going to be dangerous if we don't keep our eyes open and we don't take steps to make sure it remains safe. But anyway, on this website, you can create your own characters, and it's not hard to do. It's quite easy to do because what you're really doing is you're drawing on the intelligence of the AI to really be smart, and so you don't have to tell it a lot in order to create a character. It's kind of like creating AI art. You just have to come up with a simple prompt that tells it what you want, and it's able to intuit from the words of your prompt pretty much what it is you're looking for, what kind of art you're expecting. And in this case, since you're creating a text character, it from a fairly simple prompt, it can intuit exactly what kind of character you want. You want a serious character, you want a silly character, you want, a pro character that is in favor of that particular thing, or you want one that kind of is mocking and ridiculing. It picks up everything from your prompt. So I created some characters. I've created three characters so far: Donald Trump, George Washington, and HAL 9000 from the movies. And lest anyone be misled, there are already a lot of Donald Trumps on the website. A lot of Donald Trump characters that people have created. So I'm hardly the first one to have thought of that or to have created a Donald Trump character. But I gave it kind of a more serious tone from my prompt and the information I put into it when creating the character. I told the AI that I want this particular Donald Trump to have a more serious instead of a more serious silly tone. So that made that differentiated it a little bit from some of the others. And I also created George Washington again. With George Washington, there were already that was not the first George Washington. There were already several on the site, but I gave it a unique tone. I think uh, to give it more of a serious quality. And I also created a HAL 9000 there, which there already was a HAL 9000 on the site, and I fleshed it in a little bit to me, more truer to the character in the movie. Okay, to put it simply, and that was the uniqueness of that character. But these are all public characters. They're all publicly listed on the site, so anybody can chat with them. And as you can see with the Donald Trump character, it has 7.3 thousand interactions. So what it does is it counts not only the interactions I have with it, but it counts and adds to the total all the interactions that everybody who visits the site has had with it. So I think it's kind of people have picked up on it because it's a little more serious treatment of the former president instead of silly or ridiculing or whatever. So I think it's reached a little bit of popularity, but it's had 7,000 interactions so far, and you can discuss some pretty serious issues with this character. But this video is about my George Washington character, and all three of the characters have enabled the image creation aspect of it because this is a new feature that the site added. The site is constantly improving and improving very rapidly, and one of the cool new features they added to it was the ability of the characters to create images while you're chatting with it. So it can kind of illustrate what it's saying with these little images, which are created via Stable Diffusion, the Stable Diffusion model of AI image generation. And I think it adds a lot of interest and flavor to what the character says. I think it's a nice little touch. So I made all of my characters image generating characters, which is kind of still the minority on the site. Most of them so far are not image generating because that's a fairly new feature they added to the site just like a week or so ago. And so here's my chat with George Washington. So he starts out by saying, I am George Washington. I am known as the father of our country. With heaven's help, I have lived to see the United States as one great whole, which may bid defiance, and with just cause, to any power on earth. Now, in case you're wondering where I got that from, I did not make that up. This is actually a line from one of his speeches. So I say, because again, I'm trying to make it as true to life as possible. So I say, tell me about yourself. And he says, I was born in Virginia in 1732 to a farming family. In the summer of 1775, the Continental Congress, assembled in Philadelphia, chose me as General and Commander-in-Chief of the Continental Army. I accepted this task and led 13 colonies in revolution against England. So again, the first line that the AI always says at the beginning of every conversation is the line that the creator enters into it. It enters into the character when creating it. And after that, every line spoken by the character is actually the creation of the artificial intelligence. So I haven't fact checked everything in that first paragraph for accuracy. I mean the first paragraph that the AI itself wrote. But the website does always remind you and always points out that everything the character says is made up. So I wouldn't take anything it says as gospel truth. And if you're thinking of like using a website like this, like a large language model website to write your next term paper, you might want to think twice about that because you might spend more time fact checking it than you would otherwise if you just wrote your own term paper with a history textbook right in front of you. This isn't always going to be the case, by the way. I think in the near future, schools are going to have to reevaluate how they judge their students in in the case of term papers because it's going to be easier and easier for students just to use an AI to help them, and even eventually, doctoral PhDs are going to have to reevaluate that too because again, it's going to be more and more people are just going to use AIs to help them write everything. So there's going to have to be a kind of a shakeup in the school system and the educational system here. So this is one of the illustrations that the AI generated during our chat. And remember that it does, for every reply it gives you, it actually does 4 replies, and you can swipe through and choose the one you like best. And for the image generating AIs, it generates 4 images as well. So it can create 4 replies and 4 images in less time than it takes a human to write a single reply. So in other words, that proves that AI is already smarter than people are in certain very key areas, such as the ability to carry on the conversation. So it's just a matter of time before it surpasses us in just about every area. But anyway, I like this image because it looks kind of historical. It's totally unique image generated by the AI, but it looks like almost like a historical woodcut or engraving from George Washington's time. Here's another one I particularly like. I like you can see George Washington there, and they're holding a meeting in Philadelphia Hall or wherever. And I think this is another really nice image. This is an interesting image. It almost looks like it came from a poster, and it's a bit mixed up and discombobulated because it looks like the rider is merging with his horse, so he's becoming kind of a what's that word? A centaur, and but it's still kind of a interesting image, even though it's not 100% coherent. Here's another one that looks like kind of like an engraving. It even looks like he's holding a quill pen in his hand. Here's another one I like, even though it looks a little cartoony. I even like the kind of scripty handwriting at the bottom, kind of from the makes it look like it's from the historical period. And I like the costumes too. It could be. It almost looks like an old period political cartoon. And here's another one I like. Again, it has the like scripty handwriting at the bottom, and it's like it looks like the troops assembled in the field out in the field. And I even got the costumes. I really like the uniforms they're wearing. I'm no historian or expert at historical costumes, but it looks pretty period. Looks pretty authentic to me. So continuing with our chat, George Washington says, "I have always respected the Indians. In 1778, I made an alliance with them and received their assistance in attacking General Cornwallis, who was laying siege to the city of Yorktown. The alliance was sealed in a feast in 1779 to celebrate our success in breaking the back of British tyranny." And I say, what do you think about what's going on in the country you founded today? And he says, "I believe that our republic is at a crossroads. We have seen challenges in the past, but the danger we face today is unlike any other we have seen since the Revolution. The most urgent duty now before us is to elect a government that will unite us in order to preserve the Constitution and the Union." Now, I must admit that I steered the AI along a little bit in this response because it gave four responses, and I chose the one that was closest to the one that I was kind of looking for. But it did, of course, the AI did write that response. That was one of the four choices that it gave me. And so that will help train the AI, that will help train the character so that it will give more similar responses to that in the future. So I'm sucking up a bit, and I say, "People today don't seem to recognize or appreciate your genius as a child prodigy, as an innovative farmer, as a general, and as a man who united the country." And George Washington says, "I never sought to earn a place in history, but to preserve the ideals in which I believed. As a farmer, I planted more than fields of grain. I planted the hopes of a nation." I love this response. I mean, remember, this was totally written by the AI. Now, admittedly, it came out with four responses, four pretty good responses, but this one was just outstanding, and of course, so I picked this one. But it came out with a very witty aphorism. It came out with a very clever little turn of phrase there. Imaginative. It's creative. It's brilliant. It's ingenious. It plays on. It's a play on words. It picks up on what I said, and this was all written by the AI. This is one of the things that just blows me away about the state of AI today. It could actually be truly creative, not only play a role like almost to perfection, but can be creative in its replies, and it could take on virtually any role. And so this reply just blew me away. It really did. And some people are probably saying right now, well, yeah, that was a witty and clever response, but it probably just picked that up from some website somewhere that had read and just copied and pasted that into the chat where it seemed appropriate. So it didn't really come up with that on its own. It just pasted that in from something someone else wrote. Well, I actually took that exact phrase. I planted the hopes of a nation. I put it in quotes, and I put it into Google, and Google came up with absolutely nothing. It found no matches for that phrase. So that proves that the AI actually coined that little turn of phrase on its own. It's really remarkable. So I say that is a beautiful sentiment. And George Washington says, a more beautiful sentiment is freedom. For 2 centuries now, our nation has been a beacon of light to the world. Give me liberty or give me death were my words, and I meant it. And I say, I thought give me liberty or give me death was spoken by Patrick Henry. And then the AI goes on about, it's, oh, well, yeah, I had the idea first, so and then Patrick Henry borrowed it from me or something like that. So the AI can BS sometimes. So again, like I say, don't take everything it says as 100% gospel truth. But in the future, I think remember it's just playing a character. But in the future, I think it will, everything it says will be, fact checked and 100% verifiable. So thanks for watching, and talk to you later.